And good evening. Welcome back to Whiskey Charlie. It's been a month since our last show, and we're back live on the air. I'm Mo from Mo's Game Table, and joined by my co-host, everybody's favorite Gimp with the Limp, the TheGimpyGamer, Nate Rogers. How's it going, Nate?
Doing great. Nice to see you guys again.
Good to see you. And the War Game Wizard from Oz, Kev Sharp, in the new digs with the new poster behind there. Else background. You got a cool background now.
Yeah, I know. I don't even need a little fake one anymore.
Nice.
I'm all legit now.
And we can see it's a little darker out by you, Nate.
It's
a little dark
fall.
background going there.
It's winter now.
Yeah.
Or it's heading in that direction, so now it's actually nighttime by the time we're starting, which makes it a little easier for me to get the lighting adjusted.
Yeah. It's going to be 51 degrees here tonight in Texas.
Really?
It's awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
It should be hotter.
Up here it's going to be.
I got to check the weather.
yeah. The cold front came through, and it's going to be like 51 degrees here in North Texas. So it's like nice. I like it. Getting into real fall weather, kind of.
Nice.
It'll last about a day or two, and we'll be back up to 110.
It's still hot here. I mean, it's like 80, 85 right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was like 86
bad.
today, I think. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just like right now.
60,
oh, wow.
65 here. It'll be tonight. 65.
Nice. So, what's everybody been playing? And welcome to the audience, as we've got a whole bunch of people checking in.
We got a bunch of people. Look at all this action.
Stigler's saying that, hey, we're late. We're not professional. I say, hey, late's better than never.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll take the blame for the lateness on this one. I was watching the kids for the wife before the show started, and she's like, "Give me just a minute," and I'm like, "Look, I'm at the wire here." And she finally came in at like 8 o'clock, and she's like, "When did you need to be signed on?" I'm like, 5 minutes ago.
Now?
Yeah. So it was kind of my fault, but with young kids, can't leave them alone.
And Stigler's saying that we need that he wants to start demanding a victory point penalty if this continues. Well, hey, Stigler, every time I see you at a game that's not clipped, victory point penalty.
Yeah, there we go.
Hold on now. Because I've got one going right now it's half clipped. Like I clipped the big counters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The combat with the exclamation point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I've been running. I always have to, exclamation point that. But I've been doing a big series on that one, and I only clipped the large counters because they had the like 3/4 inch whatever size counters for the people, and then the rest of the admin counters are smaller, and there's like, I don't know, 500 of those versus 80 of the big ones. I was like, I'll just do the big ones because I can do that in like half an hour, and I'm not going to sit here clipping away at the rest of them. I just said it was to show the difference between clipping and not clipping. And,
Skater.
No, not
Skater. Call yourself a war game.
I've got the nice Oregon laminate clippy thing, so I can do it the right way. I don't agree with those.
Which one do you have, though? Do you have the deluxe or do you have the metal one?
No, I've got
non-deluxe.
I've got both actually, but the one I think of as deluxe is the big one because it works so well. I tried the little cheaper metal one at first, and it doesn't work worth shit. Like it just mutilates counters.
It's because you're a rookie. That's why.
It is not as good.
Perfect.
It's not as good as the deluxe, but it does work. It does. You have to get used to it. It's different than using a deluxe. Deluxe almost clips itself. I mean, it slides right in the slot. You just clip it. With the non-deluxe, you got to work with it. What's that?
Except they break.
They do break. They do break. That is definitely one massive problem with that.
Yeah. So I'll stick with my little old one. I can clip. I've clipped Haste Blue and Gadarian's Blitzkrieg and all those. And I've got a few swooshes here and there because that was kind of my learning game. I started with the info camera, but I'm at probably 98%, 99% accuracy on without hacking up too bad.
It's too thin. The thicker, the more modern board games that have the thicker counters, it doesn't clip those as well. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So the ones usually don't need clipping.
No, some
all
of them
counters need clipping.
No, Lock and Loads don't. Company of Heroes, not Company of Heroes, Conflict of Heroes.
No, I mean pre-rounded ones don't. But All the square ones do, or most square ones do. The
The
only square one that I've got that I've not clipped, and that's because I think that it just wouldn't be as good clipped as NATO, because I did clip a couple of the counters or the damaged ones for the reforger units. The ink on them just bruised way too easy, and I was like, nah, it's gonna look like crap if I clip all those. So I just left it as is, and I just cut them out with a razor blade.
Oh wow.
No, I'll call out the worst. I don't care. Decision Games has the worst counters that needed to be clipped. I hate to say it, but it is what it is. It might have just been the game. It was
No.
that the spacey one, the solitaire only one. I can't struggle for the galactic.
Struggle for the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, you had to clip those counters. It wasn't a you could, you had to, because they would start to like peel. Clipping them almost like pushed them together so they would stay solid.
You just described pretty much all Decision Games counters.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of their games.
Yeah, they peel very easy. Their counters, unfortunately, tend to tear apart way too easy.
Yep.
And they're thin counters. It's because they're not. I think it's because they're not die cut really cleanly all the way through, so they get stuck. You got to cut them out, or you got to really fight with them when you're peeling them off. And I know Stigler is a huge fan of their games, so he'll back me up on that.
They're the ones that make D-Day at Omaha Beach and Tarawa and all the others,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
All right, so I've got like 3 of those games. I still in my wall of shame that I haven't got one of those to the table yet. But I haven't clipped the counter, so I can't say past, the couple of folios and the struggle on whether or not those are. I was kind of hoping that D-Day would be the exception. Now you're kind of worrying me that I'm going to have to bring out the X-Acto blade and cut them out.
Yeah, you will. You will. I mean, they're better. The D-Day games that they've done are better than a lot of the other ones, but they have a tendency to be not the greatest. Kabuki's here tonight,
Well, hello, kid. Nice to see you again.
and strong recommendation to clip Space Empires 4X, unless you get the newer printing, and the newer printing actually comes out nice. It punches pretty clean. So
that game's had what, like 15 editions?
yeah, probably about 4, I think now 3 or 4.
No, I
And I don't know how many reprints.
It was when I first got into wargaming, and I did the usual, what solitaire games can I get into wargaming? Space Empires 4X was, one of the first ones that people recommended. But of course, I got into it in between a printing, so I couldn't find that game anywhere. And anytime it would pop up on eBay, it would go for like $200. And I'm like, I'm not paying that damn much for it. They did a reprint, and I was able to get a copy and get replicators and all the other good shit. I mean, I can see why people loved it. It's a good game. I really want to do a series.
A lot of paperwork.
Yes, but it's worth it. I think combining that game with Talon and doing a campaign where you actually fight it out on the Talon board using the ships would be the coolest thing ever. It would take a year, but it'd be the coolest thing ever.
Here's the question: would it take longer to do that than to play Bug River?
I don't know Bug River.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
9 hours for 1.25 turns.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, granted, we do chat a little bit in there. We're also explaining it to the people that are watching, and we're playing. But we've gone 9-10 hours over the course of 3 Friday nights. So even if you take out the BSing and stuff, I would say 6-7 hours that we've had to play, at least 6 or 7 hours that we've put into playing time, and we've only got a little over a turn. We're just into turn 2 of a 7-turn game.
So rather than doing Conflict of Heroes that me and Numbnuts up here have talked about, something
you can do
easy.
a campaign of Conflict of Heroes.
Yeah.
By the time we put into this,
Dude, you're never available, and you don't.
I will make myself available, and you can't give me that because I did text you about it a couple times.
Text? Right? You mean Facebook message?
The instant messenger, our little gay little group chat that we have. where you two are always
Yeah,
girl talking at each other.
Yeah, but you know what happens in those, right? It's a stream, and then if you say something, and then Mo gets on one of his little bandwagons like 4,000 words later, and you're like, "Oh yeah, Nate said something, but I can't find it anymore because Mo."
Well, that's because he doesn't message for like 3 or 4
I
weeks,
know.
and then all of
You
a sudden he's
disappear
like,
for like
"I
4
wasn't
days.
getting any messages." Oh, now I'm getting them, and then he just gets an avalanche of messages.
I told you, and it'll always happen as soon as I'm recording for some reason. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down here, I'm in front of combat, and all of a sudden my phone starts going ding, 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 and I'm like, that's fucking Mo. I know it right now.
When are you going to record? When do you record? Or about what time?
It varies. It's all with the kids.
Don't tell him.
So after 8 or 9 o'clock?
It's not really you, though. It's not really you. It has to do with, for some reason, I'm getting a strange error where you'll have chatted with him like the day before or over a couple of days, and it just data dumps it to me all at once. So
No, it's an ID10T error.
No, it is not an IDT. Whatever. Error on an ST ring. No. Yes, I was in the military. I know what the hell you're talking about.
Good. Usually it's PEBCAC, so that's all that matters. But what was I going to say? So let's see what everybody else is saying. We got stop the squabbling. This is the war room. You can't fight in here. That's true. You cannot.
This is playful banner. This is not
John says, I have Distant Worlds, Master of Orion, Stellaris. I think I'm good with space.
But Stellaris is coming out in board game form now from Academy Games. Did you get that?
I did not, but I did see that they did it. Because I think that's like their jam now. They're going to start like flipping all these video games into board games.
They did a good job with it. I do not know why Agents of Mayhem did not get more attention than it did, because they did a really good job with it. The dice, the unique dice, I love it when the game has unique dice, and they actually came up with good rules for a 3D terrain that you can put together relatively easy. Setup does take some time. But the asymmetrical way that it's played with a small team over here of heroes versus this large team that can have reinforcements coming in, excellent gameplay. I mean, I could go on about it for a while, and for some reason it did not take off as well as I thought it would. I think maybe the IP could have had something to do with it. Not as many people into Agents.
Could be.
The game was good, though.
Kabuki says, I still want a copy of Imperial Stars 2. Wish that would be picked up by someone for a reprint. Yeah, I agree. And I do have my copy still with all of the expansions, and I'm not giving that up. And hopefully someone will pick it up, because
Someone should talk to Compass Games.
yeah, well, I mean, I'll just say that the suggestion has been made multiple times, so we'll see what happens.
Compass Games has been kind of hitting the ground running here recently. It's like they flipped the switch and said, "Oh, we're just going to be kick-ass for a while," and just
2 games a month right now. That's what they
kick ass. I mean, they are kicking everyone's ass.
when it comes to war games.
One of the few war game companies publishing war games, right?
Well,
Strangely.
they're publishing a lot very quickly, but they are maintaining a level of quality. Now, of course, there is some errata with it. All of them are going to have
errata with all war games. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, though, you got to give it to Academy Games. They have very little errata. It takes them...
How long is their development period?
20 years to put out a game.
That's why.
Yeah, but look, it's great that there's many games coming out. And it's a little disappointing that there's errata. But if you're not producing, and in particular, we're all war gamers, although I know Ned's kind of a Euro gamer too, but still, nevertheless, you're like 85% war gamer. So it's mostly. The shirt is special too, by the way. I mean, it kind of matches your little Nate. It says Nate Rogers Gimpy, and then you've got the shirt right next to it, so it all blends in. Looks really good. But anyway, what I'm saying is that if you're going to make, you've got to make games to make money.
Yeah.
And you can't take that long. Otherwise, you need to have a bigger catalog of things to be producing. Or maybe what's his face is just so wealthy that he doesn't have to worry about it.
Uva.
Uva. Yeah.
It's not you, is it a Hoover?
He's just taken the German way, manufacture it to death, over-engineer everything, has to be perfect before it's released.
Hoover
And
engineer.
Bill with Compass is going the American way of kill 'em with numbers, swarm it.
And all war games too. That's the thing
Yeah.
that blows me away. It's not like, well, we're doing, one game a month that's a war game, and another one is kind of like an Ameritrash or a Euro war game, or a, let's call it like a coin thing that's sort of like a war game but not, or that might be a war game but I don't think it is. So there's all that going on. For him, it's all war games, which is awesome. I don't know any other company that's pushing out that many games
No.
that fast that are all war games, right?
Hold
No.
up, though. Like, coin is a war game. It's a different
I'm
type.
not going to get into that because I don't want to disagree with you and have to choke you. But
Did you
let's just agree to
fight.
disagree. Let's just agree to disagree. It's a resource placement. It's a resource management game. You put a block down, you take a block off, and it just happens to have a theme that's military, which is cool, but it's not a war game. So anyway.
Well, but the
GMP
blocks represent troops, and
Sure they do.
okay, like the War of the Pacific. Instead of putting down a block, you're putting down a counter. You're managing resources.
What's the
Hey, Tony.
What's the combat factor of this block again? That's right, it doesn't have one. So what is the? But what's the? I think there's some cool new train games coming out from GMT too, right?
I never played any of their 18 stuff.
Yeah, they've got some of those.
I think got some of those, right? I mean, they're trying to build a bigger audience so that they can, finance their war games, which must be losing money for them or something.
Well, they did say that they weren't doing that great. I mean, they weren't doing terrible, but I guess I almost every time I say something like that, I just go back to Chernobyl. Not too bad, not too great. 3.6 Rankin. It's like that. I always, every time anything is like that, well, not too bad, not too great. It's like I always go right back to Chernobyl. That scene pops up in my head. But I mean, they're really going to go the, I think the historical board game route is what they're going to be calling it, rather than just war games, because games like that are, there's the debate or arguments or whatever as to what is a war game, what's not. But it's not a hex and counter war game for sure. Those are, more Euro-ish. So that is where I think, they want to broaden the audience for themselves and get more into the Eurocrad, the hobby side of things. And I think that's, more power to them. That's great. That's what you need to do is for your business model. That's the route you're going to go. So as far as going back to what you're saying before with Compass, though, I mean, they just keep cranking out. War game after war game. It's so great to see.
I can't keep up with them. Like, I literally, just keeping up with Compass alone, I can't afford it. Like, I'm having to pick and choose.
I'm super selective on it. I mean, unfortunately, they're expensive, right? I mean, they're expensive games because they do smaller runs and it's all done in the U.S. So that's hard.
Well,
I think that was the question that Stigler had. He said, "Does Compass print stateside?" Yes, just like M&P print in the United States. They do some printing in China, but they do primarily in the United States, which is why their cost is a little higher than we see from other, publishers across the board game spectrum, where they're cheaper because they're printing in China, which is also running into problems of the supply chain right now, where they're not getting games in that fast.
Shipping, whatnot. Well, speaking of MMP, that kind of raises an interesting point. I was looking at prices there.
A little segue for you.
Keep that thinking, right? Why not jump on that? So I understand that MMP's a small house, right? And they focus on ASL. But it was curious to me that and my phone's ringing, hang on a sec, that two games that are quite similar other than the rule book and the scenario book had a $40 price differential, which is, if it was $10, I could say, it's no big deal. It's $10, right? They've got to pay the designer more or whatever, right?
Sure.
But if you look at Autumn for Barbarossa, which is now on sale, funnily enough, $33, but that was retail $44, right? It has two maps that are 18 by 22 and 352 counters that are 5/8 inch ones, and it's got the black and white 12-page series rule book for SCS, and then the specific rule book for Autumn for Barbarossa, which will be dinky, it'll be like 10 pages or whatever.
I was going to say, even if that I can't remember, I have to pull my copy.
And that's fun, right? So $44, for one battle, kind of seems like an okay price. That's about what I would expect. But then I go to this new BCS title, Aracourt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So full color BCS rule book, calling that 40 pages maybe, right? A couple of charts, nice. The BCS support rule book, not sure what that is. Maybe that's an extra color rule book with explanations. So that is what it is.
Like a playbook of sorts.
Yes.
Advanced rules.
I think it's like an advanced explanation of all stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the specific playbook scenarios. There's that. That'll be black and white like they always are. Turn record track, which is a card. One map, 22 by 34, and 352 counters that are 5/8 inch. Right, a box and some dice. But it, my friends, is going to retail $86.
Wow.
86.
Wow.
I mean that
double the price for like triple the product. It feels like.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just kind of, and I know MMP's prices have gone up a lot. I get it, right? Maybe they, I don't know what the reason is. But
well, the other thing too to keep in mind, which is true, and I think we're seeing it in all aspects of life, is even if you're printing in the United States, you still have to deal with the supply chain issues that are out there.
Yeah.
Paper and paper products are harder to get, and they're becoming more expensive. So they've got to pay the printer more, which in turn the cost gets passed off.
But these two games have both just come out, right? I mean, so Aracourt's on pre-order, right? Mm-hmm. And the Order for Barbarossa is out. You can order it today. So
and it's a Ziploc game too.
It's a box. No, this is the deluxe.
Oh, they did the box?
Yeah.
I thought they weren't doing a box for that.
No, it's a box. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow.
Let me just double check, because if it's not a box, that would explain.
I thought it was a Ziploc.
That would explain six or seven. You know what? It is not a box game.
Aha.
So there's $6, right? Because boxes cost $6 or $5, depending on it. I thought they were doing a box version. That's why I was so surprised.
Well, even if you say it was 10, it still doesn't account for the
nearly double the cost. So I'm just curious, right? I'm just wondering whether they're taking advantage of the popularity of BCS and just they know they can charge that price, or are they trying to get out of the Order for Barbarossa business? No, the SCS business? I doubt that, because it's still pretty popular.
Hey, Ron. From Newark, Ohio.
They've only got 300 orders for Aracourt.
Well, when you say that they were, roughly the same time frame, I'm wondering if production values changed maybe in between the two. It could have been, was there long enough for it to have changed?
So Aracourt's on pre-order. Oh, we lost him. Where'd he go?
Can you still hear me? I'm still here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just lost your camera, that's all. That's okay. The Aracourt's on pre-order, so it's not available today. Order for Barbarossa in a Ziploc bag, so I was wrong, is available today. The reprint with the deluxe version of it. So anyway, what's he doing?
I have no idea.
I'm trying to get my camera to come back on, but I can still hear and talk.
Okay, let's go.
Stigler says, I still don't own a single Compass game. I owned one for about 5 days before I resold it, which was Korea Fire and Ice, but that's about it.
That was a bad choice.
Yeah. And Kabuki has the Battle of the Bulge from John Butterfield, the Commander Edition, World War II Commander Edition, which is a pretty neat little game.
Yeah.
Well, that one is a direct port of the video game.
Oh, is it?
Or it might have gone the other way around. I can't remember.
That's the that was available on the iPad, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good game. I'm curious to see how that would play on the board. because you're playing the AI in that, obviously, in that game when you're playing on the PC or on the device. But it was a really cool little game.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat little game. John says my first will be Air and Armor. Wow,
Nice choice.
First war game ever, or your first from Compass?
Good choice either way.
Well, I mean, if that's your first war game, and I'm sure it's not his first war game, but that's your first war game. Wow, talk about just
Diving
chasing the whale.
Wait,
It's like, what's your first? You're going fishing today. What are you going after? Moby Dick.
do you remember what your first war game was?
Tactics 2.
What about you, Kev?
in. Waterloo. Avalon Hill.
Absolute Victory. Compass Games.
Nice.
Yep. Go big.
Tactics 2, and then
It's
after that
so
was South
baby.
Africa.
So cute.
South Africa was the one after that. And let me tell you something.
Oh, the SBI one?
Yeah, talk about
Oh, good game.
getting
Yeah.
talk about getting disheartened as a young kid playing a game solitaire. You're like, am I doing this wrong? This just
Everybody-
doesn't end.
Everybody dies and never ends.
Yeah, and I was like, holy crap, and at the time I was a little very disappointed with it, but I wasn't old enough to understand what was going on with the game, and because I was, I wanted the definitive beginning, middle, and end, and I was like, this is going on forever. What the hell? Now I did get a new copy of it, or I should say an unpunched copy of it. I did a video of it on the channel, and I'm wanting to get that on the table again, knowing what I'm getting into, but also at the same time wanting to see if there's a way where you can make it where it does have a cutoff, aside from a mutually agreed end where, the South Africa loses. I want to see if you can maybe kind of set something up where you're okay after a certain amount of turns, maybe the UN comes in or something, like you have a modifier to bring in the UN to try to negotiate peace or something like that, where you can at least have some definitive ending to it that can go either way.
Nah. Why negotiate peace when you can just keep shooting?
Yeah, but the whole point of the game is death by 1,000 cuts. South Africa is going to lose. That's the opinion of the designer in the game, and that's the point he's making, which is cool. But from a game standpoint, I want the game to have an ending at some point.
Right.
Not just go, I give up on this.
You got to cut about a 700, and we're like, okay, screw it, I'm done.
Yeah,
Just call it a day.
Why does this VP track have an infinite symbol?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so getting back to pricing. and
MMP.
stuff, I don't know. I don't know that it's a good or a bad thing. I ordered it because I want it. So yeah, there's that. The other thing that was interesting with MMP the other day was I saw there was a whole raft of errata counters in the last BCS title that came out that's set in the Eastern Front, and I had forgotten that was kind of their gig, that they would put errata counters in, and I think it's for multiple games, not just for BCS games, but also for like OCS and other things. And I was like, damn it, now I'm gonna have to go buy that friggin' thing, because some of them I want. So I'm hunting around for a secondhand copy. So anyone watching, tell a friend.
Well, what you got to do is you got to get the MMP network going, where it's like, okay, you have that game, but you don't have the other game that the errata counters are for. Why don't you send me the errata counters? I'll toss you a couple bucks or something like that, and get the errata counters for whatever game. Because I hate when they do that, when they put errata counters for another box game inside of a box game. Put them in a magazine game or.
Just used to do it in the magazine. We used to do the Christmas counters, and then they put it in that Special Ops magazine, which I don't think they're doing anymore. I don't even know if they do them anymore. But that was cool.
No, because Compass, when they had errata counters for the Vietnam game, 1965 Vietnam.
Hearts and Minds.
Hearts and Minds. Yeah, when they had errata counters for that and errata cards actually as well, they mailed them to the people. Like, it just showed up at my door.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, some of these are expansion counters and stuff like that, right? And what if counters, and I get it, right? So I would pay for them. Like, I would like to be able to buy them separately. That would be cool.
So it wasn't really a errata counter per se. Then?
It's both. It's like here. If I pull out. But at winter, it's just, pardon me.
Oh my God. It's a family show.
If he can fit his collection And
So
that
funny today.
you need
I'm
more
just
games,
wondering
but
if I have. I'm wondering if I have intellectual. I wonder if I have. I have no intellect. I wonder if I have a writer fantasy here for Third Winter because they often do that. You guys talk amongst yourselves. Now I'm curious. I'm gonna look now.
we got him trailed
Here we
off.
go. Here we go. Blitzkrieg Legend, interdiction markers, Beyond the Rhine counters, and I don't know why people have 0 step loss markers, but someone decided they needed them. Sicily counter, Smolensk counters, and Hungarian Rhapsody counters. So that was inside Third Winter. That's 200. This is $200 or 220 or something like that. This is a big ass game.
Yeah.
And that Kansas Last Stand is 166. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I think I've got Beyond the Rhine, and that one was fairly expensive.
Hey, if you want the Beyond the Rhine erotic counters, will sell to you for $100.
Yeah, let me check because I'm not sure that that's the title that I actually have. But I've said this about MMP before. A mistake I think they're making, and a buddy of mine who started working with them thinks they're making the same mistake, is that they don't have anyone that they actually work with. It doesn't have to be me. Personally, I think Kev would probably be a better bet because he plays all the BCS, OCS, SES games. But pick someone and
I
work
call
with.
BS.
Yeah, BS.
I just play them wrong. No one wants to watch my videos. That guy's into it.
But they got to have someone that they work with, right? You know, most of these companies have at least a favorite YouTuber or someone that they'll talk to every now and then,
Right.
send some stuff, help get things promoted. And it doesn't seem like MMP does that. They're just like coasting. They're happy at the level they're at, and they're just going to keep going that route.
But I think they do a pretty good job with their designers writing articles. Like Carl Fung does a lot of articles, I think. You know, he's got that blog post, Hans and Carl at Nakatomi Plaza on Board Game Geek, and he started to post on Facebook. So it's not the same as doing videos. But
no one's going to read that who's not already in the hobby.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah,
Okay.
there's that. I mean, for sure. Yeah.
You're not going to attract new customers through that medium. Now you're going to retain the customers you have or get them excited about it. That's
Sure.
great, customer retention, but you need the new media, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter sucks, but something,
Yeah.
something along
Yeah,
those
yeah.
lines to bring in
Correct.
new people. I don't think they're branching out enough into that.
Correct. I mean, if you look at all the photographs of the guys that are doing the playtesting for OCS, and I know some of those people just in passing by email and telephone calls and stuff like that, they're all significantly older folks. And I'm not saying all of them are, but I would hazard a guess that they're mostly ASL players, number one. Number two, they're OCS players, and they're all 60 plus, 65 plus. And there's obviously a smattering of guys that are younger like me and are much younger than me as well that are playing. I know for a fact, but the majority of their marketplace is mature, and you're selling to the same 1,000 people or 600 people every title, right? Every title.
Well, to be fair though, I think wargaming as a whole is a older hobby. So
Yeah.
as people age, they hit retirement and they look for something to kind of fill their time. They'll stumble into wargaming and they'll pick that up, and you'll have the age demographics stay roughly in that range. I mean, people die off, but new people get old, as we can see up above me. And it's going to stay that
And you're
way.
talking about, we always talk about the graying of the hobby. You're way younger than us, and look at that gray in your beard. So shut up.
She won't let me dye the damn thing. I offered. I was like, "Look, I can get a little black dye, put a little black dye in it." And she's
Oh,
like, "No, I like the
geez.
salt pepper."
Yeah,
So-
until it's all white.
If
Yeah.
it gets
So-
me in there, I'm good.
Got a question here from Tad. He's saying, what are a couple good World War II Compass games? I've always been a bit hesitant.
Okay, well, you got to give us more to go on than that, because that's a broad category. Are you
Well,
looking for
it's World War II.
solitaire? No. Are you looking for solitaire? Are you looking for hex and counter? Are you looking for tactical? Or are you looking for something that's grand strategic?
East front, west front. Come on, Todd. You know better than that.
Come on, man. All right.
I'll say Todd is more interested in Western European theater, World War II, probably tactical. This would be my guess.
Combat.
Combat, yeah.
Exclamation point.
that I'm covering right now. I gotta say,
Exactly.
combat is a fun one if you can kind of wade through it a little bit. There's a learning curve to it that's rather steep at the start, but once you actually get into it, the game does start to flow. But it's very much designed as a solitaire game. There's no multiplayer aspect to it, but it shows a man-to-man level combat very well. Checks it.
Well, who's gonna miss out on the penny? Why is it $2.99? What a cheap bastard.
That one.
So Stigler is asking, going back to South Africa for a minute, did South Africa have the possible result of the end of apartheid, which at that time was released, was well entrenched? I believe the end of the game was going to be the dissolution of South Africa at that point, a loss of South Africa, which would have ended apartheid. So
Yeah.
I believe that's what the point of the game was, that, which is a great thing to for the designer to come out with, to have a definite point of view. However, if you're playing the South African player, it's like, as that player, don't you want it to end at some point, other than just saying I give up? But I get what he was trying to get across, but I think there should also be an alternate. It's like, see how long you can go for, and if you go past a certain year or something like that, then it would just, you could say that the South African player wins by default, of it just dissolves apartheid at that point on its own, or something like that. It's a tough subject to play. It's a tough subject to come up with a win condition based on the criteria of that situation overall, I think.
Do you think that game could be released today?
Yeah, I don't see. Let me rephrase that. See, I don't have a problem pretty much with any game being released, just about, as long as it's within. I mean, there are some things you just don't want to game, or want to see gamed. But I think if you do historical modeling on something as a way to learn about it, to explore it, to see multiple perspectives, absolutely. Because I think the only way to learn history, aside from reading about it, stuff like that, is to appreciate it from the standpoint of a game that's well designed, because then you can look at the game from both perspectives, or multiple perspectives if there's, multiple factions. So you can have a better appreciation of what everybody was facing, and what everybody's point of view was, what their challenges were, and what they were up against. I think that's the best way to get a better appreciation of the overall conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the Pacific. I love the Pacific theaters. Got the Marines, World War II, the whole nine. And part of what I like about that theater is the fact that if you start at the beginning of World War II, or 1941, when America really got involved, that the Japanese start from a position of strength and the Americans start from a position of weakness, but that quickly flips over a couple of years, and you can see that how the Japanese effectively fought from a position on their back foot pretty much from the start, the whole rest of the time, right? Because your forces just keep getting weaker. You might get more reinforcements, but it's never going to be like it was there at the start. It's an interesting thing that I like about the history of it.
I'm still catching up on messages here. Everybody's still making comments about the epic box fart.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Yeah, and not that we aren't fun guys, right? Look at everybody here. They're like, oh, box fight. Serious wargaming chat, right?
Exactly.
Now. Let's do it.
Everybody loves a good box fart.
Have you played anything other than Bug River with me? Have you been playing anything recently? What else have you been working on?
My light just went out. Who, me?
You.
Played NATO, and then went right into Bug River with you, because I had started to play Bug River solo, and I was like, yeah, this is going to take way longer than I wanted to, and these counters are driving me nuts because they're sliding all over the place.
Right. Yeah. Just
back in the box, pulling out NATO, because I wanted to sit down and do that, and that's when I played through and did the AAR, and then I started playing a game last week with Bruce on Vassal. So we were testing out the module as it was getting ready to be released.
Right.
Found some issues with it, and Joel was gonna take care of it, and he did. But it's great to see that module's out there, because that's a damn fun game. That is such a good game.
Yeah.
NATO.
Yeah, NATO. Our game got cancelled on Sunday, so kind of kind of bummed about that. But
Well, we'll have to get a fourth and play a 4-player.
Yeah.
Well, we still need to do, what was it, Tank Ace or is that the right name of it? I'm having a brain fart. The
Tank Duel.
Tank Duel. That's it. Yeah, we still need to do a big game of Tank Duel. We could have done that this year if everything still wasn't closed the hell down.
But you can do it on Vassal.
I hate Vassal. I got into board games because I didn't want to play more video games. If I want to play a video game, I'm going to sit down and play a damn video game. If I want to play a board game...
It's a board game on the computer.
Look, it's kind of like sex, right? You know, you can watch as much of it as you want on the screen, but it's not the same thing as actually getting your hands on it, you know? I like to get my hands on it.
This is true. Hey, Henry.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Hey, you guys might have forgotten, but us younger guys still appreciate.
Oh, funny guy.
Charles, look at that. 17 pre-orders. Wow.
Is it Kickstarters or pre-orders, though?
Pre-orders, I think. He's got in with different publishers.
Because the pre-orders, they don't take your money up front. Or at least most of them don't, I don't believe.
Well, you got a budget for
Kabuki, Kabuki agrees with you. She says that it's not the same digitally.
She knows. Well, yeah, she knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm with you, bud. I've got something like 20.
You're talking about the game. Don't be talking to Kabuki like that. It's going to make me mad. And Jester goes, you need some practice with Tank Duel before you even think about taking on the War Room guys.
Oh, really?
We know the difference between Algiers and Algeria.
Yeah.
Actually, that could be a good one because they've got 3 guys.
Yeah.
We could do a 3-on-3.
Well, we had talked about doing that game and then another game, which hopefully it will be under development soon because the Vassal module I don't believe is under development yet for Battle for Armageddon, because I think that would be a fantastic game. It's a 6-player game, and that would be so much fun to play because it's all cutthroat, backstabbing, throwing nukes at each other, and just trash talk.
Is that the one by Flying Pig?
No, that's the one that you're thinking of. The battle you're talking about, Armageddon War. Battle for Armageddon is Compass.
Okay, I might have brain farted that one out. Yeah, I was thinking of the Flying Pig one. But yeah, we should get the multiplayer version going on that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Todd says the same thing. He's on board with Nate with the Vassal thing. But
I'm not saying Vassal doesn't have its purposes.
See, now you upset Stigler. It's not a video game. It's just not. And it's not. It does take some adjustment mentally because everybody wants to push counters around. But then you play digitally and you realize, holy crap, I can play it anytime with anyone that wants to play a game when we could sit down and play it. And you can play it digitally. It does take a little adjustment, but it's not that bad. And you find out, holy crap, this is almost as good as playing the board game. But the big challenge, or the big change, I should say, is there's no setup. You just load up the scenario and you go.
Well, depending on what game you're playing, that is a huge difference. A game like 1985, Under an Iron Sky, I mean, yeah, that'd be a huge one to not have to worry about setup. So I see the benefits of Vassal. But honestly, the big thing I use Vassal for is ripping image files so I can use them in my game videos.
Yeah, I mean it serves that purpose too. But Vassal is great, and like I said, me and Kev have been playing Bug River, and which is good because it's the only way we could play it, right now. Because otherwise we'd have to wait till we're at a con together or something like that to where we can play. And this way we can play it on Friday night. We can kind of jack around with everybody online, talk and have some fun, give everybody something to tune into. And also they could check out what it's like to play Bug River so they can see if the game is for them or not. And while we're learning it and while we're playing it. So it's one of the things that we're all dealing with now with the the new adjusted social aspects of being locked in with the pandemic. And even though we're not locked down right now, we're still kind of in that holding pattern where people are not out and about like they were before. So this is what we're doing.
What is making it to where you guys are taking 9 hours a damn turn, though?
It's a combination of we're learning it. We're trying to make sure we're getting the steps right. And it's a little fiddly. And it is longer. It takes longer than it should. And we've been talking with VUCA about that in some series of emails. because we ran into one problem, which, they're not going to change the stacking requirements, but a quick rundown of it, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong here. There's a stacking limitation of 1 infantry and 2 armored battalions per hex. And when it's set up, and I've seen this now, Kev isn't the only one that did that, because I think I set my board up this way, or pretty damn close to it. I've seen other people set it up that way, because you have starting hexes and you got to put, certain units around the starting hex, and there's a bunch of infantry. So what do? You put 1 in each hex, because you are limited to a stack of 1 infantry, 2 armor on top of that. But if you don't have armor to put there, it's got to be 1 infantry. Well, I ran up and attacked him and pushed him back, retreated him. Well, he retreated into an infantry hex. Well, a hex that had an infantry unit in it. The way the rule is, it disrupts everybody in the hex, and it retreats on. Disrupts everybody in that hex, and retreats on, until you find a hex that does not have infantry in it.
You're forced to set them up to where the units are stacked, like lined up back to back to back, and the moment you get 1 retreat, it's this domino effect.
Well, I think in their testing, they didn't have anybody to play the way I did. I think they were playing with a guy, a Soviet player's like, sure, come on across the Bug River, and I'm like, screw you, I got friggin' tanks. I ran right up there. I'm like, I started swinging right away. I'm like, well, hey, this is the way I play. I'm just gonna go up there and get into a brawl. And Kev's like, okay, yeah, let's have fun with this. So we were just fighting. And he's like, oh, dude, you're like actually getting. I took a few licks, and then I gave him a few licks, and then I knocked him back. And that's when we were like, the rules say this. That doesn't make any sense, though.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd circumstance. And I think
caught them off guard too.
And, once you get across the river, it's not a big deal. Lots of room, right? And so it doesn't matter. But in order to exploit any advantage you gain from crossing the river, you got to be up close, because you only got 3 movement points anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's +1 to cross the river using the boat doohickeys, or if you're going across the bridge, then, let alone the fact that all of that congestion really makes it difficult to try and pass through, because the zones, zones control lock you into stopping and stuff like that. So you've got to literally push everybody back 2 hexes, and you've got to get the forces across to be able to do that. So you've got to be up close so that you can punch across in the next activation. So it's an activation-based system.
Yeah, the way you're having to set up your units to exploit any hole that you create makes it to where you have an exploitable weakness that he can use if he pushes on the attack.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a flaw with the system.
But I didn't even know that. We did not know that. Yeah. We just found out by my attitude was like, why am I going to sit back, man? This is a war game. I'm going to get up there and start throwing punches. you know? And also, when you think about it, it's like, when they tested, did they test with people that were like, okay, I'm just going to let you come across the river? No, it's a choke point. Attack them at the choke point. You don't let somebody come across. You get them in that fatal funnel if you can. I mean, it's just tactical sense, just tactical common sense. So I ran right up there, and I'm like,
pin them in.
Well, who knows? Yeah, exactly. I was like, who knows? Maybe I'll take some lumps, but the good thing is there's like, what, 6 or 8 hit points that you can get. So step losses that you can take. So I was like, it's not like you're going to flip in 2 hits and you're dead. So you can take some and give some, and that's what we did.
Like that, right? So the armor's a little weaker, but not that much. And if you were combining your attacks with armor and infantry, so you were kind of soaking up some of the losses, because you have a assuming I can get enough forces across, which I kind of have now. I've got some of the guys across and all the rest of it. I can wrap up that tank 4, because you're down to 1 or 2 steps out of 4 or 5 areas on many of those units. But you still got those big infantry units there that are 5 and 6 steps.
Around Volodymyr Zelensky. Yeah.
Did you talk to him about it, though? Send him the email and let him know about that?
Yeah, they were super nice. They were great guys.
They watch our videos even.
I know they watched all 9 hours. Can you believe that? Poor bastard.
And they were like, "Wow, you guys, you guys are bringing up some points there. We'd like to discuss those with you." It's like, okay, well, we could talk about that. I think it would probably be better. And they even said they're coming to Texas next month. So it's like, well, we got to find out where. And it's like, hey, yeah, we'll sit down and have a drink. It's like, well, make it early because we'll probably be there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours talking about it.
Yeah.
know-
Well, I think, so depending on when that is, I'm going to be up in Dallas because I think it's Dallas or Fort Worth they're going to, right? So
Oh, is that where they're going to be?
Yeah, they're coming to that. I'm going up for that advanced hyper combat thing, and then I think they're in for some other con. Is there some other?
Is that still in Plano or Dallas?
I don't know. It's all the same to me. Dallas, Plano. It's
No. I mean the hotel where they're at. Because I remember the first one I went to. Was
I haven't booked.
Plano.
That reminds me. Shit, I need to book a hotel. So
Important things.
Yeah, I need a pencil.
Texas is just
I gotta make a note, otherwise I'm gonna forget.
I'll tell you what. Speaking of what you're talking about, I've actually found that out while playing Combat with the exclamation point, that I kind of like it when the designer's watching the videos, because things that I have questions about, I can actually say it in the video. I'm like, I'm a little curious about this. Hey, Ross, put it in the comments and let me know. And then he'll put it down in the comments. In the next video, I can update that and say, yeah, okay, this is what he explained out to me. I've only had like one question where I actually had to email him and go back and forth over it, and he was real great. Emailed me right back, got the answer to me. I love it when the designer's like willing to do that. And Combat's not a recent game. This one's been out for what, a couple
2 years.
Yeah. So he's still jumping right in and helping out with it.
There's an expansion coming.
I thought it was a standalone new game.
No, Combat 2 is going to be an expansion.
You sure? Like 100% you require. I mean, I've got the first game, so it doesn't matter. But
yeah, you require the first game.
Well, that kind of sucks.
Let me see here.
They should do that as like a standalone.
Is it out of print or something? What's the problem?
They got more in. It was out of print at one point, and that's why I didn't order it like a year ago. But I think they got more copies in at some
Combat
point.
Volume 2, D-Day, or From D-Day to VE Day campaign expansion.
Then why the hell would they call it 2?
Because it's the second one in the series.
Second volume, number.
Exactly.
Hey, so there's another good thing that Compass does that I like. They will bring games back into stock quickly.
Yes.
They may not print a lot, but if they see it's popular, they'll print another batch, which I really like. Versus, sometimes you got to wait a long time. It's not like I'm down on GMT, but I'm not. You got to wait a long time for games to be republished in the GMT universe, right? And then there's that whole scam where all the insiders know when the reprint's coming, and so they ditch their copies. Whenever I see a designer start selling these games, I know that they're about to do a reprint.
Reprint's about to hit. Don't buy it. Wait.
But it took like a year and a half for me to finally get a copy of Empires 4X. When I first started looking for it. What the hell?
Yeah.
U-boot guys coming to Austin?
John's just busting chops.
I want Kev to play U-boat so bad.
No.
I sat and watched it played for an hour and a half. I was hanging out with a bunch of guys at a con, and they were playing, and the 3 or 4 of us were sitting around watching. And while the guys who played were probably pretty tipsy and may or may not have done everything right, they didn't seem to be having anywhere near as much fun as the other group of guys a little bit further over that were playing a hex encounter sub game that was a plot your move and chase each other
Captain
down.
Sonar?
What's
No,
that?
it wasn't
Were they playing Captain Sonar?
I think it was Sonar. I think it
Captain
was.
Sonar is so much fun.
Captain
It is
Sonar's
really
a party game.
No, it's not. I
No.
mean, it is, but it is.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
No, but I've watched enough
need to play
videos
it.
to see. It looks like a blast. I'd love to play it.
It is
Right.
so much fun.
Anyway, I think they were having a better time, right?
I think
yeah.
U-boot, or I always want to call it boot, I think it's a solo game. I think it plays better as a
Really?
solo game.
How do you play
100%.
co-op game solo? They have a solo rules for it or something?
Yeah,
You have to
100%.
pause like every 2 seconds.
You
Yeah,
give
whatever.
yourself the ability to pause, and you make your decisions tactically. Like, okay, what do I want these guys to do? And you make your choices, and you go from there. You kind of house rule it just a little bit, but once you do, you really kind of feel like you're piloting the sub, and then to actually see it on screen, like the first time I was playing the game, and I was able to track down using the navigation and plotting and the little navigation tools. That's really awesome. That was a neat aspect.
Yeah.
And
that's cool. Right.
I found the enemy ship. And then I was able to actually click the button and launch a torpedo at it and watch that sucker blow up. That was awesome. That's why I think the game excels as a solo and shouldn't even just been tried as a cooperative game.
So you don't do any of the sending the cook down to the engineering room to fix the engine, or sending the engineer up to the kitchen to cook, or any of that. You don't do
that's
that?
a waste of time.
I eliminated the whole food pyramid mini game. I was like, look, this is bad. This is just busy work they gave to people. But if you're playing it like I am, just keep track that you have food stores and subtract from your food stores to account for the fact that you've been at sea and you have to resupply at some point. That's the main aspect. Once you take out the stupid mini games like time filler games that they had for some of the cooperative spaces and focus on the actual just piloting of the sub, getting from point A to B, getting the right people in the right places, the game plays very well, and it's a good simulation for those who are willing to play an app-based board game.
What they could have done was they could have made it the game itself to actually be really a good war game. What they should have done was had the app and then given you a grease pencil and a laminated chart, your C chart, and then giving you tools to plot everything out. That's what they should have done. It eliminated the U-boat miniature, eliminate all the little miniatures, all the fluff. Eliminate all that.
I love the fluff.
But the fluff doesn't do anything. You said you took out all the Euro aspects of the game.
I took out some of them. I kept the navigation and the making sure the right
navigation
people
would be part of the whole.
Yeah, but did you move the little guys around from one part of the sub to the other?
I made sure, yes, that they were the worker placement aspect, that they were in the right places. Well, if your guy gets injured, that's something that could be gamed, right? That your main guy got injured and he was down, so he couldn't operate this, so you have to have someone else try to jerry-rig the part. Right? That can work out fine. Or you have your navigator up on the top while you're surfaced looking for whatever enemy ships or stuff like that. Keeping track of that made a certain amount of sense.
But you could have done the app. You could have done it like Greg does his Hunters series and added the app in and had the plotting aspect of it as well. And it would have worked smooth as glass.
So you're talking about kind of like playing the Hunters, and then like it's the Hunters kind of switches into that app portion when you get up to the convoy.
Yeah, actually plotting your intercepts and working up your torpedo solution, the whole 9 yards. That would have been fantastic.
Right. So that's where I think the Hunters would have been more engaging if there was a little more activity you had to do in terms of plotting where you were relative. I know that you choose distances to close and all that sort of stuff, but actually doing a little bit more work, like game-based work, to position yourself for the best shot, and then taking that shot and then seeing the results, and not just rolling a d6 to see if something happened, right? I mean, I just think it would have been more interesting and more engaging to work out a way to make that more visceral.
Yeah, that would be a whole game in itself. Right there.
Yeah, a little more visual on a map or on a little circular doodly plotting the stuff. That'd be fun.
Well, there was a game that did similar, that really old tank game, Patton's Best, I think it was.
Best.
Where you had to kind of decide that, your tank is in the center and it's what's going on around you.
Yeah. Well, Gary redid that, right? He did.
He's doing that.
Gregory redid that, didn't he?
Yeah, he's doing Tank Ace, which is going to be kind of like Hunters and all of his that solo narrative style for Sherman. So, and then he's going to do one for the Soviets as well.
Yeah.
So,
but
now,
those
there
games,
was a question.
It really comes down to just what vehicle you want to play. I mean, they've got subs, they got Zeppelins, they've got planes, they've got.
It's all here. You're playing this vehicle, theater of the mind. That's what I think is so cool about those games.
Which, granted, fine. I like the games. All right, I'm not hating on the game, but I'm saying you don't really need the other versions. If you only like subs, then you really only need the sub version.
Well, yeah.
And it honestly comes down to how many versions of the sub one do you need, because they all play very similar.
Not necessarily. So I would have thought that, right? I would have thought that too. But did you not watch my interview that I did?
No. I don't even watch my own shit.
Well, I don't watch your fucking videos either. So
the truth comes out.
Yeah, no, but so they're different. I'll just leave it at that.
Nice in-depth answer
I
right
really
there.
can't be bothered explaining why they're different, but they're different.
Watch the video.
Yeah.
Tim's got a question here. He's got a question for us and for the chat, and I think chat's been answering it here. It says, hey guys in chat, question, how do you recommend taking on the more complex wargame rules?
Slowly.
I don't play those games. I don't play those games. I'm only kidding. That's a good question. And I really think when it comes to complex rules, it depends on multiple factors, really. It's not just one simple thing. And number one is how motivated are you? Is it a subject that you really are interested in? If you're interested in something, you'll spend the time and you'll dig into the game. And I've always felt, to me, my big test for a game is always the same. I always sit down, I set up the game as it says in the rulebook, and then I try to play it right out of the rulebook. And if I get kind of lost, I'm like, okay, either these rules suck, they're not formatted for me the way I like to learn them, so it doesn't mean they suck. They either do suck, or they're not formatted that way, or they are not thinking that people do that, which can be the case. Good case in point for that is Mitch Land. He does not write his rule books for you to sit down and set up the game and play from it. He tells you the procedures, and then you follow the player age chart, sequence of play, and then you go from there, breaking down all the things, which are in order, but it's not set in a step-by-step play mode, like some rule books are. But they're clear and they make sense. At least that's how I do it. You guys?
I'll tell you what I do, and this is partly because I have the real bad memory thing, is I'll sit down with the rule book once and I just read it cover to cover without the crap in front of me. All right, just operating off the mind's eye, and usually once I hit about 80% through the rule book, I feel like I've started to get a grasp of the game. Once I've read through the rule book once, that's when I lay out all the components, the player aids, the counters, usually they're still in their sheet, the map, and get it all laid out in front of me, and I start reading through the rule book again. This is for complex games, not like, something easy. And go through it slower and look at the components. Like, okay, when I was reading this and was talking about this, it was referring to this stuff here. And like, okay, and when I was reading this, it was talking about this stuff here, and this is how they interact. That way, when I sit down to actually play the game, I've got like two good read-throughs of the rulebook under my belt, because I don't have the time to do a full playthrough of all these games before I start filming. I'd never be able to film. I'd get one video out every 2 weeks at best, with as complex as some of these can be. So I try to do as much prep work beforehand so I don't have to do a whole lot of prep later on. If that kind of makes sense.
That's a good method.
What about you, Mr. Kev?
So for complicated stuff, let's see. I think, well, generally speaking, I'm looking ahead. So I'm usually playing something and recording something, or playing something right in AR, or just playing. And I'll be nighttime. I'm reading rule books ahead. So if I'm planning on playing the next 3 or 4 games, I'll read the next 3 or 4 games rule books, pencil or pen on a printed out copy, and I summarize the rules on the margin. So if we're doing a combat like a Bug River, it's look up the tech for the DRMs, or it's multiply everything by 2, or rivers are a bitch, double check that, right? And I put little notes, and I have my own little shorthand that I use for that. So then when I go to the game, I usually what I do is set the campaign up and just get after it. But it's a big time investment as well as complicated. I would probably just pick up a small handful of counters and shuffle them around and do something with them, or play a small scenario, and I'll use that to then I'll build. Sometimes I'll actually take the sequence of play and I'll write my own sequence of play and outline important things to remember, like things not to forget, right?
Yeah.
And that's what tripped me up with Time for Trumpets, for instance, because there's so many if, then, and, or else. If this happens, then that happens. That's what forced me to kind of just pack it up. And I probably just should have played it and just let it work itself out. But I think with a complex game, getting comfortable with the rules and maybe even look at I read the play examples pretty much fair detail. Mm-hmm. And then I'll try and do something set up, and then I'll just get after them play. Because 90% of the time, the more complex the game, I think, the less chance there is that you're going to do something wrong that's going to fundamentally break the gameplay, or take you so far off the historical track that it's like you've just foobarred it, right? Mm-hmm. I've done that on some occasions, and a couple of times I've been able to, because I was filming, go back and look at it and rewind my play back to that point and then go forward. But most of the time, like especially with OCS and TCS and stuff like that, even with Great Battles of History, you can make mistakes there, and it's really not gonna matter at the end of the day.
So do you edit yours out when you're recording? Like, if you catch yourself making a mistake, do you go back and edit that out, or do you leave it in?
Not anymore. I used to. If you go back and look at my early videos, there's not I mean, there are, but there are way less ums and ahs than there are now, because I would go back and edit the soundtrack out and edit out errors and re-record things and do all of that. And, at the end of the day, you get the same number of views anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't care. Right. I don't care how many views I get. So I've just decided I just record my stuff. And a lot of the time, that's why I love playing live, right, and doing a live stream, because you screw something up, some guy
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, some guy might call you out on it. And although it's 20 seconds late and I may not see it because I'm on my phone when I'm live streaming, at least everyone knows that, I'm playing and I'm live streaming and I'm providing commentary. So it's kind of like, oh, well, he's just a dude who just got it wrong. So let's just move on, right?
We all play things wrong.
Right. That's why I can't do what you do, Nate. Like, I could not do a tutorial to save my life. I've tried to do a couple for certain games, and I've always had some person come back and go, yeah, well, that's wrong or that's wrong. I was like, well, you know what? Then why should I actually bother? Because I wasn't enjoying doing it anyway. I was trying to be helpful, so fuck it. You guys can work it out yourself.
Or I didn't like the way you did this. Why didn't you present it this way? I would have liked it better this way. Well, then you shoot the video.
Yeah, I'm moving more towards doing gameplay and then looking at what were my tactical choices. What can I? Yeah. What are the other things I could have done or could do, and then plan them out. And sometimes I'll do both. Right? I'll play something out, and then I'll see what happens, and then I'll rewind it and go forward again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or we'll play online and we'll screw things up. We're find problems.
Right. Yeah.
But I think then there's other games too. Like I'll point out one that I've just not touched because I've heard too many problems with the rule books, and that's Fields of Fire. I want to play that game. I got Volume 2 because it's the Marine Corps, so I definitely want to play that. Right. However, because of the complaining I've heard about the rules and stuff, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to try to invest the time in it because being a content creator, you want to keep content going. You need to work on different games and do different content. So it's like, that's something where I would need to just say, okay, for the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'm just going to play this game because I'm going to need to get the feel of it, get the groove, try to decipher the rules. And I can't do that. So I've got so many other things going on that I just don't have the time for it. Hopefully if they unscrew the rules and get them, nice and smooth, then I will revisit that at some point.
But you also have a different style again, right? So you're like your introductions to games and then your sort of summary gameplay, which you insert graphics and all the rest of it, which are awesome. That's kind of like a play-by-play.
Yeah.
And I know you do sportscasting, right? So it's kind of a sports.
It is. Yeah.
It's a sportscasting way overview of the game, and it's really entertaining. Those that I've watched, and Nate, I have watched some of your videos. But
he's just saying that.
I'm just saying that to make it feel better. But that's a different style, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I haven't had a physical war game on the table for 6 weeks. So,
wow.
I'm just the move and all the rest of it, selling the house and showing the house, all that nonsense. So, I've done stuff with you. That's it, and some other hassle stuff, right?
Well, I'll tell you, the reason I did Fields of Fire the way that I did it, too, when I covered that one, was because I knew I wasn't going to get the rules anywhere near 100% right. So I told the people right off the bat, like, I'm going to mess this up. I don't have the time to learn it to the level that I will not make a mistake. So we're going to do this as a learning experience together. Usually I don't say this, but if you guys catch an error, put it down in the comments and I'll address it on the next one, and we'll just do a group learning experience as I go through a couple of turns and let you guys see how the game plays out, and that way the mistakes that I'm making, others will see and like, okay, understand it doesn't play that way, it plays this way. Because I figure if I'm making these mistakes, it's a mistake that someone else is very likely to make, so it would behoove them for them to see me make it and understand that's the wrong thing to do, right? Yeah. And I think it worked out pretty well, actually. I still think they massively underrated the complexity of that game, too, putting it at like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
That's like an 8.
Is that a Ben Hull game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's kind of been plagued with rule book challenges.
I think part of the reason is where he's running into, or where he runs into problems is something that some designers will run into, and that is either lacking a developer or lacking the right developer, at least for the rule aspect, because the designer has it all in here. He knows how it works. The translation from here to paper is not always going to work smoothly. Some designers are really good at giving a really good rule book. Some are not. And I think his thing is, okay, here's the game, get it into a good developer's hand who can grasp all the concepts and then translate it onto the paper properly. And it's going to take multiple iterations to get it right. And GMT's got a team working on it now to try to straighten it out. So, and that's going to be a big project. So hopefully they'll get it done at some point.
Yeah, it's not just getting it on paper. It's getting it on paper in the right order.
In the right order, yes.
Yeah. The right order is a big thing, because if you put concepts, it could be all perfectly written, but if it's kind of jumbled in however it was popping up in your mind, then no one's going to be able to keep track of it. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when I read a rule book, is if they're talking about concepts here that they haven't addressed until later on.
Right? Well, that's what... Annoying.
Yes. And then you got to hunt it down, and then when you're in, the worst part is when you're in the middle of a game going, I know I've seen that. Where is that? And I can tell you off the top of my head, Fields of Fire is like that, as is DVG Warfighter was like that. And they started to straighten out their rule book. They did a much better job on that. But for a game that's as fairly simple as that is, when you need to look something up, I found it kind of hard at first in the old rule books. Now they've gotten it better than it was in the first iteration. But that's not the type of game that should be that confusing.
Yeah, it's real, because it's a really straightforward game. It's kind of beer and pretzels fun. But Zero Leader, I was real, and this is not a ding on Chuck by any means, because I think...
No, ding Chuck, go for it.
No,
I'm just picking. I love Chuck.
Chuck's a good dude, right? But I was disappointed with how the layout of the rule book was, and I looked at it, and it's pretty much a cut and paste copy of Phantom Leader in terms of the flow, and it made it difficult to find where stuff was. And then there's errors on the charts, and it really was just really super disappointing to me that should be. And I had the same issues learning Phantom Leader as I had with learning Zero Leader, except having to pack up for the move. I was like, you know what? I don't have the time to dick around with this and rewrite my own rule book, in my little shorthand format. So I'm out. right? Now, I want to play the game, but the lack of development of the rule book just broke the immersion for me because I'm trying to get all engaged in it, and it's not working because you couldn't read the columns on the table, and then one table had the wrong heading, and rules are all over the place for looking up things. It's annoying as all get out, right? DVG, not DVG, OCS does an amazing job, right? Dean Essig.
Mm-hmm.
The rules say exactly what they say. They don't say anything,
and that's
else.
it.
And you don't imply anything else. And I love watching people ask questions and say, "Does this mean this?" No.
What does it say?
Does it say that? And Mitch Land's got his rules to that same point as well. Do what the rules say. Shut up.
Don't insinuate anything.
Right.
Just do what it says.
Stop trying to min-max the game, right?
Yeah.
Just knock it off. Right?
Well, the only thing you have to remember with like Mitch's games and Dean's games is to follow the procedures properly.
Yeah.
And that's where you could get a little confused. You can throw things out of sync, and that's where you can get yourself messed up. Other than that, though, they're pretty straightforward.
See, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when you read the rule and in playing the game, you realize that the rule can be interpreted one of two ways.
Right, or four ways.
Or, whatever.
Ambiguity is a problem. Yeah.
And you're looking at it and you're going, okay, well, if I read it with this inflection, it means this. And if I read it under this moonlight, it means this. And I'm kind of like, I'll just roll the dice and just hope I'm landing where the hell he hoped. Hold on. There's something I wanted to bring up before I forget because we're getting a little long in the tooth. It's something I saw on Facebook. And you guys know I love this guy, so I always push him. David Thompson, he's got a card game coming out, solo and I think competitive. It might be cooperative, but it's called Resist. All right, and he was asking for playtesters, kind of looking at the tabletop Vassal module and getting it started. It's early phase where it's at now, but it's a tactical card game. That's pretty much all I know at this point. I wasn't able to get in on the playtest, but I did told him I'm available. It sounds good, and I like all the shit you put out. So if you need
it's
help,
Vassal, so you're out right there.
No, it's Tabletop Simulator,
which is on a PC, right?
which is the same damn difference.
Computer game.
It's the same difference. But it does look good.
Different.
It sounds interesting. So if you're into stuff like Upfront, Warfighter, Point Blank that's coming soon from Lock and Load. Yeah, if you like any of those
Lock and Load Publishing.
tactical card games, David Thompson's putting one out, and you guys know he puts out good stuff. So just kind of keep your ear. I don't even know who's publishing it yet, or if he's got a publisher, but I know it's being worked on and stuff's in the works.
Not going to be DVG. I'm surprised.
It might be DVG. It might. It's in their wheelhouse. It's in their purview. Tactical card games.
Yeah.
But it might. It sounds
from
what I was reading a little harder than Warfighter.
They're prepackaged too, which DVG likes because they don't have. Because one of the things that going back to, I hate to sound like we're picking on DVG, but this is just observations. The rule books have similar problems, especially with the leader games and stuff like that. B-17 Leader was another one. It was good, but you had to really fight to get through the rule book. Once you did, you found out there was a good game in there. Then they got that rule book straightened out. But you shouldn't have to fight through those rules. That's something they should do up front. No pun intended from what you were just talking about. But going back to what I was saying with Dave does his games where they're self-contained packages. He does the rules, everything, boom, it's done. It's good. It's easy to understand. All the publisher has to do is print it.
But he's not human. He's kind of like a robot or something. I don't think he's people. He's something else because he just keeps churning out good games without effort. I don't know. There's something off about this guy. Maybe he's an alien.
There's definitely effort. But some of these guys here, playing ASL 221 times, and then of course Ken's got to one up him by saying soon 222.
Nice. I also see with.
I've never played ASL, and I refuse because nope. If I fall down that rabbit hole, I'll never get out. Yeah. There's just too much. My local game store has a wall just covered in ASL stuff, all the boxes and packs and all that stuff. I'm like, nope. Yeah. If I get into it, I'll never stop buying the expansions because I want everything.
What about Brian Jarvis's point? What's the Who would you buy a Dana Lombardi game at this stage?
That was the one that they did on Kickstarter. Dana Lombardi and Roger McGowan did a World War One card game, which sounded kind of interesting, for what it was. I did not back it, I just didn't back it at the time, but I did see it, and I was like, it kind of looks like it'd be kind of neat. So I don't see a reason not to if the subject matter and the gameplay seems interesting to you.
Yeah, did they? And didn't he just publish a book on Waterloo as well? I think Daniel Lombardi did that as well. So I'm just wondering where his head's at, because it was all about Streets of Stalingrad for some period of time, and then that whole kerfuffle happened with the with the maps and the designer or the developer or whatever, and so that all went away. But I haven't seen anything from L2 in so long. I'm just confused about them.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it's really a shame about the Streets of Stalingrad. However, War of the Rats was supposed to be the one that was supposed to continue on with the other guy, so haven't heard anything new on that in a while. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I would love to see that, happen. Yeah. Although that's a game that it would probably be a Vassal game for the most part,
huge
because it's just too big, although everyone would want to have a copy.
I've got a copy, and I've got the old Streets of Stalingrad, like the very first edition, and it's a big lift.
And that's the easier one.
That's the
first edition. Yeah,
first edition is the easy one. It's not particularly attractive to look at, but it. And the L2 version is interesting, but I just don't know that I want to do the work on memorizing all these symbols, because they don't use NATO symbols. They use German symbols and Russian symbols.
Yeah. Wouldn't the Germans use the same symbols? They're part of NATO.
But
it's World War II. It's World War II.
Yeah. Speaking of NATO, though, I would say that is a fantastic rule book. Now you have your copy.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna mention that earlier on. I was gonna bring it up because I think the moving back to, it's kind of like this old days of SPI, where the design principle or the designer's intent or the rules summary of a rule is a great idea. And he called them the grognard something.
Veteran summary,
The veteran summary, right? So helps if you can read that, and if you get it, you don't have to go read all the subpoints, and you can move on. So now you're reading a handful of paragraphs versus an 80-page rule book.
Okay, so you're basically saying if you already understand the basics of wargaming, read these sections, and you should get a good grasp.
Yep.
Damn, that just sucks.
And then the supply, like one of the things about supply is like the supply section, I think is like 8 pages long or something. But it's really simple. There's movement supply, combat supply. You just cannot be beyond supply range of your headquarters unit. If you are, you're out of supply, out of either movement or combat supply. You're not out of combat supply till after you get into your first engagement. So you can stay in movement supply and then go out of movement supply, get half your movement points to go beyond the reach of your headquarters, but you've never been in combat yet. These couple of units, they're still in combat supply because they haven't shot their load yet. And then when they fight, then boom, they're done with their combat load, and then they have to get resupplied. Then they're back in they're out of combat supply until they get back in combat supply.
No, not if they're Marine units. Marines, one shot, one kill.
True.
We carry enough ammo to kill thousands. We're good.
But this is the Fulda Gap. There's no Marines there.
See, that's why it's not worth getting.
This is all NATO. Oh no, it's fantastic. It's worth getting. Aaron Armor is the next one coming out from. That one looking forward to too.
I told you it was between combat or NATO, and I was like, all right, so many people are covering NATO right now. I'm going to get combat so I can cover something that's not getting as much coverage, get a little individual attention going on. But now I still really want to get NATO. Is the air one a separate game, or is it an expansion?
Aaron Armor is a completely different game.
New game.
But based off the same rule set?
No.
Like just completely different.
It's more along the lines of, do you have Less Than 60 Miles or Dogs of War?
No.
Because it's kind of more like that than it is your standard hex encounter game. It is a hex encounter game, but it's what was the NATO Division Commander, I think it was, or something like that, that it's more in line with than your standard. Like it's when you compare it to NATO, It's more along the lines of like NATO Division Commander because it's more detailed. Plus, they have now, Fred came out with their own solo system, its own solo system, so you can play it solitaire. So you never know what units there are going to be on your flanks or whatever. And
so it's
the
got
really cool
hidden
thing
units.
is, yes, it's got hidden from you that you can play as solitaire. So you can play it against an AI, so you don't know what you're going to face out there. But they're recommending, and I see this would be really cool, if you're playing head to head and you both know the rules and all that stuff, use those rules also.
Right.
So you don't know what's out on your flanks.
Right.
No
That makes
kidding.
perfect sense.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
adds some friction, and that
Because
fog of war.
the game's not really playable solo.
It is now.
as it
Yeah.
was, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the new version of it, which has been updated, new OB, new maps, because there were issues with the maps in terms of the accuracy and river crossings and stuff like that. And then the rules mechanics have been tuned and tweaked because there was minor issues there. But they use a variable unknown, and when I say variable and unknown, combat strength. You choose which units have what combat strength.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have 3 battalions in a division, and the first one that rolls up might be a recon unit, so you might have it with a strength of 1. But I don't know, as the defender, I don't know what the strength is until we actually get in the fight, right? And then the next unit might be a 2, and the next one might be a 9. Or you might have 9 up front, and then 2, and then 1. But you've got a finite number of points to get that allocated across a division, and then you then apply them to your enemy, and your enemy doesn't know which unit is the one that has the strongest guy, right? So where's the main thrust coming from? You don't really know that.
Yes.
You can get some intel and things like that through the gameplay and whatnot, but you don't know. And so that's the great thing about the game system.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the great things about the game system.
Well, how do you keep track?
Well, you just got a little chit. You got little chits underneath them, right? Or it's and everyone's got a chit because they can be dummies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you do it. It's real straightforward, very simple.
But once
think it's
you
cool to have
apply
that.
it, like it stays, right? So let's
No,
say you
can
put one
change
in.
it. Yeah, I can change it. I can change it every turn. I can just say, well, I'm pushing 2. I'm doing a double battalion up front and 1 back, or I'm doing 3 up and none back. You can do that. You can you can mix it around however you want.
I mean, that sounds really interesting and really cool, but it sounds like there's going to be a lot of administrative upkeep in between the turns.
Not really. There's some. You do something with it. I don't know whether it's off board because I haven't played it in 10 years, but it was either it was off board and you managed it over there, and you didn't have a chit on the board. I put the chit on the board because I was playing solo, and I played opposed 2 or 3 times. We played the dickens out of that, and it had basic rules and advanced rules, and I think they're mushing that all together now. It's just a game. Because the advanced rules were kind of goofy anyway. They were pretty straightforward. So,
And the other thing too about his rules, about Bruce's rules, it's 87-page rule book. So everyone right away is like, holy crap, 87 pages, a lot of rules. Bruce is very, very verbose, for NATO. He's very verbose. And like Kev was pointing out, the veteran summary. So you have 87 pages, take out the support pages, you're down to like 60-ish or something like that. And in there you can dump pages left and right. I don't need to read these 2 pages. I don't need to read these 4 pages, whatever, because I understand from the veteran summary what it's going to cover.
right.
And then you just get into the parts that you need to understand. And you don't even really necessarily need to read the rules because most of it's pretty common sense. You can go off the player aids, and then if you're not sure, it tells you what case to look up. You look up that case, you read it, you go, yep, okay, totally understand, move on. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And that's another innovation that I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years that a lot of companies are starting to do and even OCS is doing it now. And next fall, dang it, what did this play? Victory Games Korea, the reboot of that.
Oh yeah.
The sequence of play has all the rules cases right along the side, so it makes it super easy to go. Oh, what was that again? Oh, let me just quickly.
Bam, just go right there. Yeah.
No, I like that. Because especially if a game's similar, I mean, they can be by different companies. but I've noticed when reading a rule book that a lot of times I've read it to find out what's different about this war game between this one, because it'll have similar concepts, whether it's supply lines, communication lines, zones of control, that type stuff. But it's like this game rounds up, whereas this game rounds down, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. You know, the little differences in between the two.
Well, the other thing too is, as wargamers, which is why we end up playing war games the way we do, where we play them competitively but cooperatively. No one's going to keep 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 pages of rules in their head for every game they're playing. So you go, oh, is this? Do I do this here? And then whoever you're playing with goes, no, you don't do that. You do it this way. Oh, okay. I got the other rules in my head, and they start jumbling. They do have a lot of carryover, but at the same time, they start to get a little mushy in there. So,
I'll tell you what, I wish I could borrow my little boy's brain to learn rule books, because I swear to God, he's got an eidetic memory. Like the stuff he
Really?
yes. He came up, like, he starts reciting stuff out to me. He's like, Daddy, you want me to tell you what's in the solar system? And he starts reciting, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And he's like, oh, I'm doing it backwards.
dude,
He starts at, like,
hand him a rule book and say,
Yeah.
go read this, come back and tell me how to do it later.
Dude, he started at the Kuiper belt and works backwards, and he's throwing in other stuff. I'm like, what are these other things? He's like, oh, those are the moons. I'm like, I don't even know
nice.
that shit.
Oh, that's the Oort cloud, Daddy.
Yeah, I mean, he just talks about other stuff. He recently started teaching himself about geography, and the Olympics were on, and he was like, "Oh, that's this country and this country," and he's just recognizing the flags. I'm like, "Well, you little genius." We're trying to find a little. Sorry, I got distracted. I love my little boy. He's really smart, so I like to bring him.
Really? No, really. I didn't know you loved them. Couldn't tell.
Well, we want to find like a special school or something to put him in, because everything he reads, he remembers, and he just just picks it up. I swear to God, he's smarter than I am.
Training him. Start training him now. Jeopardy in about 5-10 years.
Yeah, kids Jeopardy. That's what I should do.
Start teaching him languages, man. All right, number one.
He already started teaching himself. He started looking up YouTube videos on how to learn to speak Chinese.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Damn.
He was like, Daddy, do you know what this means? And I was like, no. And he's like, this is this in China. He said, I'm like, okay. Good job, buddy.
Here's a good point that Ken brings up. He says, you don't commit the rule book, you commit the experience over many playings. That is a really great point, because that's the easiest way for people to remember rules. You relate them to experiences, whether it's positive or negative experiences. You either did a really good, you used a rule properly and made this great move, and oh yeah, that was ridiculous, I blew right through his line. Or you do something stupid and you play it wrong and you go, oh, I totally blew that. You'll remember that you made a mistake with that rule next time because of that.
Right.
And usually you'll laugh about it,
Right.
and things like that. But that is a perfect example of how we do remember rules, and that's by experience, which comes down to just get in there and play it. Like you always say, Kev, roll dice.
Right. The best way to learn a game is to play it. And, I keep telling people complain about, I got no time, I got this, I got that. I wish I could learn this game. Just pull your head out of your backside and set the game up. And even if you don't set the whole scenario up, just get a handful of units and move them around and roll the dice.
Or if somebody would just sit down and do some boot camp videos for games.
I wish Nate would make some videos.
Yeah.
Nate, yeah.
I'll tell you, I still have probably a third of this rulebook left to finish out Point Blank's boot camp, and then I'm easing back on those for a little bit, because they are so time intensive to go through a whole rulebook and then make a video for each individual section of it.
I don't know how you do that shit, dude. I would not. You could not pay me all the money in China, to give me the tea in China, whatever it is, whatever that saying is. I would not do that.
When I started doing it, I only had 2 kids. So, and both of them were very young. I had one baby and one young toddler. Most of the time they were napping. I could get 7 of those done in a week. Now I've got 4 kids running around screaming at the top of their lungs all the damn time, and I've only got the evenings to work on it.
This is the problem, man. If you would only watch what you wanted to do instead of doing what you wanted to do, you wouldn't have 4 kids.
No, doing what I wanted to do got me the 4 kids. That's the problem.
I'm not saying you need to be more digital and less physical.
No. I gotta make use of it while I'm still young. Then I'll be old and all I'll have left is war games.
Well, that's another good point too.
Memories.
Which point?
People are buying games faster than they can learn and appreciate them. The Avalon Hill games still reveal subtleties after decades. That is true. There is a lot of cult of the new to a degree, but there's also a real reason for the FOMO in wargamers. We've talked about this before because for wargamers, we've talked about it before where a game comes out in print. I'm interested in that. I better get it now because it might go out of print. I might not see it for two to 5 years, if ever. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that is the problem.
For that.
You can go out and you can buy Terraforming Mars off a shelf right now, right? That game's been out like 10 years. You can't do that with Case Blue, right? You can't do that with games that were released, whatever, years ago. If you want a war game, unfortunately, you have to get it pretty much when it releases as the only way to guarantee yourself a copy of it. Anything else, it's a crapshoot.
Well, and I might take a contrarian view on that playing a game many, many times. I've got a small handful of titles or systems that I've played 30 plus times and a handful of systems I've played 100 plus times. You know, Lock and Load, Tactical, World of War, OCS, I'm probably at 50, 60 plays or something like that, different scenarios and stuff. And while there is that revelation of subtleties, if a game is so nuanced and maybe it's complex that I need to play it 50 times to actually get it right or get the value out of it, did I play all those other times wrong, or am I now just playing it better? That's one of the things that bothers me about a game. If a game has all these hidden Easter eggs in it, I'm not sure that I want to have to play it 15 times.
It could also be who you're playing against, because you're playing off the other person. You know, and maybe they're doing something different that someone else hadn't done before, and that's when you find out something that you hadn't thought of before. You're like, oh, I found this little subtlety here.
Yeah, it's a good point.
No,
I mean, there's a lot of things. If it can be replayed and you can, the big key is, can it be replayed multiple times and it still feels fresh and still feels good and still feels engaging? That's what matters the most.
Right.
You know, I'm a reference a game that's, not a war game, but X-Wing. I understand that game real well because I've played it hundreds of times. Not very much since COVID started, but you still learn new techniques throughout the game, not even just with new ships released and all that, but fighting against that opponent, you learn the techniques they're trying, something you never thought of, but the rules themselves are extremely basic. Get your ship pointed at the enemy and roll dice, and then he rolls defensive dice. That's it. I mean, that's...
Okay. I got a question. Well, why is that not a war game?
Well...
It's a sci-fi war game, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess you could count it as a war game.
I think it's a war game. I love that game. I've played that a few times. That's fun. We did the what do you call it? The Death Star.
The trench run. Yeah.
Run. That was super fun.
Yeah. Some people actually set up a big diorama with like an actual trench set up, like they built it.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. That's an awesome way to play the game.
Yeah.
But yes, I would call it like a miniature skirmish game, I guess. But it's a war game.
I still think it's war games. Yeah, it's not a board war game for sure, right?
Yeah, it's a war game.
Yeah.
It's a miniatures war game, and that's what, when you say war game, a lot of people immediately go to miniatures. They go Warhammer 40K, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I mean, it depends on, what your audience is, who your audience is. Everybody with the Warhammer, the miniatures, they're thinking of the painting and getting the acquisition of the models and following the codexes and the whole 9 yards.
40K is not going to be around. They're killing themselves. They have actually had people's ads pulled off of eBay for copyright infringement. Someone designed a model themselves. No one else had influence. They designed the model. They print the model. They paint the model. And they sell it on eBay saying you can use it for a diorama or you could use it in this game or whatever. And GW had the model pulled off of eBay saying it was copyright infringement on their product. Yeah, they've gone full hardcore attacking their fan base. So they're gonna go down.
They're gonna eat themselves. Yeah, they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot because me personally, if a publisher has that sort of that authoritarian view, I have a pretty short attention for that. I mean, a short. My gaff tank, as I call it, my give a fuck tank for them, just goes down to zero pretty quick. I'm like, you're out of here. Done with your product.
Didn't they also do the same thing with when they launched the YouTube channel, or they have their own
Warhammer Plus?
Warhammer Plus now. So now all of the fan digital work that's been done is all they've either bought it all, I guess, or they've had it forced out or something.
Yes,
because there used to be a whole bunch of really cool videos out.
Wow.
On that, and they're all gone. I don't know where they are, but
they had them struck from the internet. They either accepted the very one-sided contract that GW offered them, or they were copyright struck off the internet. And they've done that with everything. Fan-made videos, fan-made stories, people selling models on eBay. It would be like GMT coming out attacking us for any war game, not necessarily even their war games, but any video we put up that had to do with a war game, saying that it's copyright infringement.
Right.
That's a good way insanity. That's professional suicide right there, because you will kill yourself, because your fans will, and nothing is worse than pissing off nerds, and that's what all gamers are, nerds. And if you piss off nerds, they're going to go, you know what? I have been a diligent fan of yours for years. I've spent thousands of dollars on your product. Now I'm going to be your worst nightmare. Yep. And they will. You know, it's stupid move.
Pop up Kenneth's comment, because this is interesting. The utilization exploitation, exactly. So OCS is a classic example of that, right? Where there are things you can do that I just found out 3 or 4 weeks ago. There's a mechanism that can allow you to really move a substantial amount of units a lot further and a lot more than you could in any other given circumstance. And that's a rules exploitation that you don't find out about unless you play a lot, and it gets talked about on Facebook or the forums.
How do you feel about things like that? Does it feel does it cheapen the experience?
Yeah, some of it's gaming, and so one of the cool things is I'm glad I've never played against someone who pulled that stunt with me, because I would be really aggravated if that was used without some sort of explanation, or hey, here's the thing you can do, I want to show you, versus oh, here's the thing I want to do, and by the way, I win, right? That type of thing. When we're playing a game of that complexity and that scale, right, that much time and effort, and so sort of
that would turn me off of the entire system. Like that. Immediately.
Mo mentioned something to me the other day. Said he was going to use some exploit he'd figured out in a game to disrupt all his enemies' units, like as they were pushing past the choke point. I can't remember who he was talking about.
Yeah, well, he did.
The funny thing, we found that inadvertently, and that right there is a good example of technically an exploit, because if you're playing somebody and you know the rules, you know you've played it now once or twice, and you see, oh crap, this has happened to me. I'm going to go up and try to do the same thing to them and disrupt everybody. Yep. So I'm going to burn up all your APs for the next turn, which gives me a chance to kind of turn the tide on you and delay you. That's cheap. And that really cheapens the experience, because to me, what we're there for is the fun and the
right. Well, like you and I handled it like we handled it. Like, oh, that's kind of weird. Oh, so let's table that, and then we came back the next week. We said, okay, here's how we're going to treat it, because we think the rule's kind of foobarred, so we're not going to use the rule the way that we think the way the rule's written. So we changed the rule, and we agreed on what that was. Now, ends up, it didn't happen again, or if it did happen,
which is funny.
Yeah, right. It didn't happen again, so I don't think we had to worry about it. And the one time it may have happened, I think we said we'd roll for disruption, and then we would let the guy stack, right? So, but he couldn't participate in combat and that stuff. Anyway, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think, what was it? I saw something here, Stigler he's saying exploit is a strong word. I'd stop at taking advantage. Exploit sounds like borderline cheating, and that is a good point, because that's how I would interpret an exploit when I find if there is an exploit in the game and someone does it. It's like, okay, when you do that, it's like, what was that? The hammer in A Few Acres of Snow. what was the name of that damn thing? Someone will say in the chat, but that one unbeatable strategy that in A Few Acres of Snow that was found.
Right. What's his name's hammer?
Yeah. When that's done, if that's what you should do, if you know how to do it, what you do is you tell your opponent, hey, guess what? Time out for a second. This situation right here is a perfect example where you can pull this hammer thing. Here's how it plays out, so you're aware of it. So if you see someone doing this, that's what they're pulling on you.
Right.
And it would be real simple. I would play you one time and one time only if you did that, because my attitude is, if you want the win that bad, you're not here for the gaming experience that I am. I'm not going to waste my time with you again. Unless you do it instructionally.
So there's instructional gameplay, and which can still be competitive,
and then walk it back and then say, okay, now I'm not going to do that, but I wanted to show you how it works.
Here's what can happen, right?
Yes.
So I think what he was saying was, look, there's
Halifax Hammer.
There's a richness. Halifax Hammer. That's right. There's a richness to a game with the depth of rules that you may learn over time, and I'm just suggesting that that's fine, but I probably don't. I'm not sure what he's talking about there, but I'm not sure that I want to or need to play a game 10, 15, or 20 times and pull more stuff out of the rules because it's either complex or so nuanced that I don't get it, that type of thing. Proud Monster is a great example. There are things in Proud Monster that you do that, or should do, that just make no sense. So attacking an empty hex. So what I was told by Don Johnson, you can't win as the Germans if you don't attack empty hexes. Okay.
Why do you attack the empty hex?
Well, it's something to do with if there was a retreat or whatever, then you follow on, you cause a retreat, and then you follow on and attack the empty hex anyway, right? It's a goof because it lets you cross the river for free. It doesn't cost you movement points, right? So stupid.
Oh God.
Right? And so I was like, that's why it's still unpunched. I've tried playing that thing 3 times on Vassal with a buddy of mine. We never got past the second turn because every time we would go ask questions, we'd go, oh, well, we've got to restart because that breaks the game. The way we play was either wrong or misinterpreted or not used correctly. And, oh, by the way, here's this little goofy piece of bullshit rule that you really need to take advantage of. I was like, okay, I'm done. Next.
Don't tell
I
me
like
that.
The whole move, you got that.
Yeah, I've got Proud Monster on my my shelf. It's
another
shame.
No, you love it. Just go read 12 years of CSW posts, and then you'll be up to speed and know all the Easter eggs. It's great.
It's unpunched, but it is torn. Gimpy's gal did guesses on it, and she tore the map for me twice. So
the rules need a rewrite, right? They're not clear or concise, and they're wordy and they're verbose, and they don't say what they mean. There are some issues in 2 or 3 different sections where we both thought, we should rewrite these rules so we can play these, and neither of us volunteered to do it.
But does it actually say you can attack an empty hex? Because that's something I never even would have thought of.
I'm sure maybe it does. I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah, it's like when there's an empty hex, I'm moving into it.
When you say Proud Monster, is there like an older version, or are we talking about Proud Monster Deluxe?
Proud Monster Deluxe is the version I'm talking about, and Ty Bomber's version was Proud Monster and another module, and they were Command Magazine games. This is a very enhanced, very different game system. I haven't played the first one or the second one.
Well, it might end up on the shelf longer than anticipated. Maybe I'll pull it out when the kids graduate.
Well, it's interesting, and it's true because, like, when it comes to, and I know that there was a side conversation over here with Ken and Stigler talking about, exploits and the negative connotations and how that, can be a negative. Some people see it negatively, some people don't. And you got a visitor. The thing is, that reminds me of is it's kind of like playing BattleTech back in the day. There were always people that were min-maxers. They were just looking for the cheap. They would munchkin the hell out of their mech, and they would get like these massive alpha strikes that would do massive damage to you. But if they didn't kill you right away, then they'd be in trouble, and then they would rules lawyer you and stuff. And it's like, I'm not here to play the rules. I'm here to play the game. I'm here for the fun. I'm not a tournament type of guy, and I'm not there for. There's no money on the line. I don't care, about winning or losing, even if there's money on the line.
Let's play for money. I don't play for money.
I mean, I'm just not I put it this way. I'm just not a super competitive person.
Right.
Because, I mean, I am, but only in certain things. And I don't like the way I get when I'm competitive.
Yeah.
Because I get very, very, very serious. And I don't like that. To me, it's just not, it takes some of the fun out of it. The only thing that I do enjoy being like that with is hockey. I can get really, really serious about it and still enjoy it. But I don't know. Some people get like that, and then you get around people that are like that, and it just doesn't feel like it's a real fun environment.
I'm the same. I'm the same with basketball. When I play hoop, we're playing until one of us dies, right? And sprained ankles, torn this, whatever. Nope, not stopping. There was me and a guy I used to work when I first moved to the U.S. We played outside. We played outside. It was 40 degrees or something like that. I'd never been in really cold weather before in my life. And we started playing out in his basketball ring outside. And he was maybe like up to here on me. And he was going all out on this. And I was going all out. I ended up having an asthma attack, right? And I was like, I'm still playing because it's
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just give me a minute.
I'm good. I'm wheezing and couldn't breathe. And I didn't have my medicine with me. And I was miserable. But so I will win, right? I want to win, right? Gaming, I don't bring that as much to the table.
See, Ken, you started all this trouble. It's all your fault, Ken.
Oh, yeah, it's all good, Ken. Don't worry. We're just
Ken, you know what we're doing? We're exploiting this conversation.
Yeah.
Just a small tangent.
And we're taking advantage of it. Anyway, my point about that is that I think gaming can be fun and competitive at the same time.
Yeah.
I think you can. My buddy Pete, when we play, if we're coaching each other, oh, look, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you could do that. Have you thought about
exactly? Yeah.
Until a certain point, right? And then it's like, okay, you forgot, son of a bitch. Too bad, right? Now we're going for the win, right? So,
yeah.
You never play any of these games with your wife, do you? Because my wife has to win.
Oh no, my wife wouldn't play a board game if it meant her salvation. She would not play a war game.
No, she won't play war games, but she'll play board games.
Not even no cards, no board games, nothing. Not happening.
No, we played a lot of stuff, but she's always got, even if it's cooperative. I'm like, honey, we're working together, and she's like, yeah, but I gotta, work together harder than you. I've got to win better.
Well, I stand corrected. She played Secret Hitler once, so we did.
Well, that's not really a board game. That's like a drinking game.
Yeah. Well,
social deduction game. I mean,
I had all her drinks for her though. That all worked out great.
I mean, you can play. I mean, I do play competitive. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't play competitive. It's just I have a different mentality when it comes to competitive. My idea of competitive is I'm competing against whoever I'm playing against, but at the same time I'm more competitive against myself. It's like, don't make mistakes, read the situation correctly, employ your troops properly, treat it as if you're really in command and you're trying to minimize your losses, or say to hell with it, go for broke, which is what I usually do. I don't care. They're cardboard. Go ahead and dive, go forth and die for me because I'm going to just put up a stringent defense, or I'm just going to go for a crazy attack. But I will play competitive really more against myself as much against myself as against another player as far as trying to perform good. But at the same time, I'm not competitive to the point where it's like I treat it like a tournament game. It's like if I lose, it's not going to bother me. If I win, it's going to have the same weight either way for me. It's really more about personal satisfaction. Number one, that I perform properly, did I do things right? And the second is that I have fun. Actually, the first is, did I have fun? The second is, did I do things properly? Or did I just happen to win because you made a mistake and I found an exploit there, using the term in a positive context.
Yeah. Exploit your bad choices.
I exploited your mistake, exactly. Yeah, I'm just having to bust Ken's chops now. It's all in good fun, man. It's all in good fun.
Well, Kev's fine. He's taken care of. They keep bringing stuff to him.
I know. Look at this, man.
Right. Well, my son's got these 3 Hispanic buddies that he works with, and it's Taco Tuesdays, and so
nice.
they made I've got fresh fish, fresh shrimp, and all this homemade sauce that these guys all make. I guess their mum makes it or something. I don't know who makes it, but I've got fresh mango salsa here. And my son brought it in and said, you need to have some because mum ate it all. I ate all the rest of it. So I've got fresh fish and shrimp and fantastic mango salsa. So I'm going to mute myself.
I mean,
so private and public, if you're going to dip your toe into BattleTech can be a lot of fun. It really is. I don't mean to knock on BattleTech. I not played it many years, but I'm going to get myself back into it as well. What I was talking about is when you play with some people, in my experiences, I've had more negative experiences than positive experiences, unfortunately. And that was just because of the groups that I ended up playing with over time, where people were like Kev was saying before, it's like, oh, so you're going to do that? Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. All right, well, you don't know these rules, so I'm going to teach you these rules right now and kick your ass. It's like, that's not, and then they puff up like they're, big, great
awesome.
BattleTech player. It's like, yeah, good for you, dude. I'm never going to play with you again because you're a jackass. And that's just not fun. To me, it's like, if someone's going to make a mistake and I know they're new to a game or they don't play it as much as I do, I'll just say, hold on a second. What are you going to do? And why are you going to do that?
Right.
Do you realize that if you do this, that's going to leave me open to do this, this, and this to you? And if they say, yeah, no, I understand that. It's like, okay, so you understand this is a go for broke situation, what you're trying to do. It's like, yeah, okay, as long as you're good with that. And you realize that I'm probably going to take advantage of the mistake that you're going to make here because I'm anticipating a mistake because you have like a 1 in 12 chance of doing this. If you do it, it's going to be heroic. If you don't, you're going to get hammered. But respect your opponent and teach each other because that's how you get a guy to come back and keep playing, not to turn them off.
It's better than those guys that show up to a tournament with weighted damn dice. Yeah, I've had some buddies who've dealt with that, and the guy was playing a game, I think it was 40K, and the dude had, when he needed to roll high, he would roll these certain colored dice. When he needed to roll low, he would roll certain colored dice. And the guy called over a tournament official and was like, hey, can you take a look at this? Can you eyeball these? It's like, I guarantee you those are rolling high. And the dude fought him on it for a minute, like, no, they're fine, and tried to keep the TO away, and the TO rolled them, and hey, what do you know? They always roll 5 or 6. These always roll low. You're out. Like, no, dude, you're not even playing the game then. You're just cheating. If you got to cheat to win, kiss my ass. People like that I won't play with ever again. I catch you cheating, I'm done. Like, forever.
No, something like that, I think if there's somebody that's caught in a tournament situation, especially like with miniatures, with the amount of public information that's out there about these and public groups that are out there, that's where I'm in a name and shame type of thing. It's like, well, I played with Joe Schmo and he did this and he used weighted dice in his tournament, and get the name out there, let everybody know this guy's a cheater because he literally is cheating. So, that way other people go, hey, if I ever play this guy, I'm going to watch him.
We were playing a guy, I think we did 3-player of some Storm over Dien Bien Phu or something like that. It's a goofy little card thing. Fun game. But he would roll and he would put his arm up like this and roll his dice into his hand. Right? Oh, my God. And I was sitting to one side, and that's right, it was 2-player, and I wasn't playing. I was just hanging out, waiting for them to finish, and we're going to do a 3-player or something else. And I saw him sweep the dice up a couple of times, and you got to roll 6s or whatever, and they were all 1s. Like, really? Come on, guys. And then he would shuffle the artillery cards back into the deck without trying to get caught. And there's only a certain number of artillery cards, and he got the same one like 3 times. So what we didn't call him out. We just agreed that he was now no longer part of the wargaming group. There was 7 or 8 of us in Austin at that time, and now we moved it down to 7 instead of 8. So he was out, never invited again.
No, I don't blame you. Yeah, one chance. There's no second chances when it comes to stuff like that.
And no need to make a fuss about it. You want to be a hacker. That's your fault.
I mean, there's an honest mistake that could be made. He could have, because I've done it where I've made an honest mistake. I've grabbed too many cards and I'm like, I shuffled them all in, and the other guy goes, "Hold on, you're not supposed to put those back." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not. Oh crap, sorry. Let's take them out." That's fine. But when you're going, "Oh, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about," and you're just shuffling the cards, it's like, no, you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
No, really, there were 3 of these in the deck. Trust me.
No, I
But-
caught myself cheating one time accidentally in a tournament because I was reading the word "or" onto a card where it didn't exist, and it was just supposed to be this one specific case. But I was reading if "and" or happened, then X would happen. And I played the whole tournament that way until someone called me on it. I'm like, no, it says "or" right here. I'm like, it doesn't say "or," and I felt so bad at that point. I apologized, and they understood that I wasn't deliberately trying to.
It's
to
an
cheat
honest
them.
mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was like,
And you can tell by a person's read on their face. You can tell when they look at it and they go, and it dawns on them, like, "Oh, dude, I am so sorry. I've been playing this so wrong." And then you can tell when someone's faking it and when someone's legit.
well, I
"Oh, crap,
offered
I
to
totally
withdraw
screwed this
from the
up."
tournament. And I was like, look, I'll just take last place because I cheated the whole tournament inadvertently. And they're like, no, you're like 2-2 for the tournament. You're fine. Like, don't worry about
You
it.
suck anyway.
You're not cheating good enough.
Yeah, you're not cheating hard enough to win hard. You're good. We'll just let it ride.
I love it though when you're playing with somebody and you've both been playing the system for quite a while, and then
you're doing it wrong.
And one of you calls out the other guy, and you're like, "That's not how that works." Like, "Oh no, it is." Like, actually, no, it's not, right? And then you sort of sit there and go, "Oh, how many hours have I played this game for in the past, and how many hours have I done that wrong?" That just breaks my spirit sometimes.
All right, you guys
I
will
hate
have
that.
to forgive me, but I promised her I would get the baby 15 minutes ago, so she's
you're good,
she's
man.
climbing up
You're
my
good.
ass. I got a jet. It was nice
Cool.
seeing
Is that
everyone.
uncomfortable?
You guys take care. I will talk to you guys later.